The book of Luke, the 15th chapter, verses 4 through 7. And if I can have a good brother, Shaul, to read that for me. The book of Luke, or Luke. Still got me hearing somebody talking. Okay, because I looked up and I think there's a question. So she's just talking out loud. Okay. The book of Luke, the 15th chapter, 4 through 7. All right, so Shaul, when you have it?
Yeah, I have it.
All right.
What man of you having 100 sheep, if he loses one of them, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after that which is lost until he finds it? And when he have found it, he layeth it on his shoulders, rejoicing.
Wow.
And when he cometh home, he calls together his friends and neighbors, saying unto them, rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep which I lost.
Hallelujah.
I say unto you, that likewise joy shall be in heaven over one sinner that repenteth, more than over 99 just persons which need to repent.
Hallelujah. So this thing now is about being our brother's keeper, making sure that we keep in contact with one another. And these are all, again, the characteristics from the very beginning that the Father showed with this righteous bloodline with Abel. It's all there, and these are all now prophetic shadow pictures of Yahusha or Mashiyach. Now, we also wanted to do, let's see here. Let's see. The word Zion, we had talked about that. That means sheep. And figuratively, it means men. And we're going to show this in the book of Ezekiel. Ezekiel, the 34th chapter, verse 31. 31. There's something that I wanted to bring out here. I want to make sure that I bring it home. 34, 31. The book of Ezekiel, the 34th chapter, verse 31. Because we're still talking about sheep, and we're still talking about flock, which is one of the attributes of Abel. It says, you, my flock of my pasture, are men, and I am your Elohim, said Yahuah Elohim. So what I wanted to share here is that word, the sheep of my pasture, or my flock, are men. Well, we're going to look at that two ways. The literal man, because it is his responsibility now, okay, to build the Father's house. To build the Father's house is that man's responsibility. And we as shepherds now, it is our responsibility now to make sure that this takes place, according to Scripture. Now this is before the Mashiyach passed away. And what we're going to be doing now is tackling a little bit later on. Something happened in the 1st century, okay? There's a lot of female ministers out here, okay? And they're building the Father's house. We're going to look at that. We're going to really, really look at that real close with the Father's ministry. Now, watch this. This word, I'm just going to read it again. Watch this real closely. And you, my flock of my pasture, are men. Can anybody hit your little icon there and see what you get? Did you get mankind? Adam, and Adam is referencing mankind, right? Because Ezekiel at times is called the son of Adam. Son of Adam. So, let's go now to the book of Revelation, the 21st chapter, verses 1 through 3. What I'm trying to do here is set things back the way that it was from the very beginning. The very beginning. And again, we're going to let the scriptures talk so that way there's no problem. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the set apart city, New Jerusalem. And just for argument's sake, when we look at New Jerusalem according to the dimensions that they're given in the book of Revelations, found out a couple of years ago that, just read my notes here, New Jerusalem is approximately now 2 million square miles. This is what's supposed to be coming out of Shamayim. 2 million square miles. Can you imagine something like that coming into the atmosphere? Now remember, what's going to cause a whole lot of problems here now is that the earth now, they said, the earth don't rotate, it doesn't, it stands still. I'm not getting into all of that right now. This is not what we're talking about here. But we do have what we call now a gravitational pull. Something that big coming into this atmosphere is going to cause major catastrophe all over the place.
Like an asteroid.
Yeah, it's because again, when you have something going clockwise, if there's something coming in counterclockwise, it's going to cause a disturbance. Now, just look up the information when you get time. But New Jerusalem is approximately 2 million square miles. The height is between 1,400 and 1,500 feet going straight up into the air. That's going higher than the atmosphere. You're now in what they're called the stratosphere, over 600,000 stories high. These are the measurements that they're given. And length and height, and it's nearly, you're talking about 2 million square miles, over 600,000 square feet in the air, and I just found this real amazing. So there is an inheritance that the scriptures is talking about. So when John the Revelator sees this vision here, he said, I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the set apart city, New Jerusalem, coming down from Elohim out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. So we're talking about now another wedding is going to take place, another Exodus, and we want to make sure that we're part of this Last Supper. And we all want to be there, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of Elohim is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. And Elohim himself shall be with them, and be their Elohim. When we look at this word tabernacle, this word tabernacle I found very interesting because it's all making a reference now to the bloodline. Tabernacle. Talking about prophetic shadow pictures. Whenever we see the building of the tabernacle, that was the responsibility of who?
Priest.
Who?
The tabernacle. Zadok and his son.
Right, there's white men, right? This is who was doing this. The women had actually cut rocks and do all that heavy lifting. So what I'm just trying to share here now is that the actual physical building of the tabernacle was done by the men. The tabernacle now, which is us, the ministry, because within inside of the tabernacle is where they did the ministry, right? What we're trying to do is put things again back in its proper place, because there has been a role reversal now, where now the Ishas are now like the dominant figures, and now the man is at the bottom of the totem pole. But what we're trying to do now is put things again back the way that they were, where we now have the Father, the Son, the man, the women, and then the children. That's the proper way that things are done. This Zadok bloodline is the only true bloodline, and this is what Melchizedek and Abraham were now establishing. Let's let the scriptures talk. In Exodus 25 and 8. 25 and 8. Let's have Yahuah to read that for me, please.
Exodus 25 and 8.
Yes.
And let them make me a sanctuary, that I may dwell among them.
Right, so this sanctuary that we were supposed to be building is actually now our own personal houses. But there's going to actually now be a tabernacle where the Father is going to send His Son. He's going to actually now dwell in. So again, just trying to put everything back in its proper place again now, we want to make sure that that man holds up to his responsibility, being the shepherd, being the forerunner, being the feeder of the sheep, the way that Scriptures tells us that he needs to be. And that last word that I wanted to bring out is the word, let's see now if you can notice the difference here, or if there is a difference. Let's look at the word Zion again. T. Z-A-O-N. And it's spelled again. Sadeh. We have the Aleph. We have the U. And we have the Nun. Okay, this is now for sheep. Now this is, the other one now I'm going to write is Zion. And that one there is spelled, we have, Zion is actually Sadeh. We have the Yod, the U, and we have the Nun. Now, what do you notice the difference between those two words here?
The yod makes the difference.
The what now?
One has the yod and the olive are the two that makes the difference.
Right, so in Zion here, we don't have the Aleph, and we don't have the Yod.
Zion and Zion.
Right, exactly. So what I'm trying to share here now is that because of the vowel pointing system, and we do have the same sound with both words here, and they're interchangeable because Zion is Israel, the sheep is Israel, so it is all interwoven into one. So when we begin to look at Abel again, Abel shared all of these characteristics of a righteous individual. He was a tabernacle, he was a tender of the sheep. We have Zion there, and he was the second priest, making Adam the first priest, but we have a struggle between the adversary seed and the righteous seed. The next one that was in line to be righteous was, again, Abel. And I'm going to share some things with us. Share some things. Let's go back to the book of Genesis, the 4th chapter. Now, I know I'm saying a lot here, but we're going somewhere. It says now, and again, verse 2, and she again bare his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep. We talked about keeper, we went into the word sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And Cain just means that he was a smith. I mean, he worked with metal, he was a tiller of the ground, so there's really nothing too fascinating about him. I wanted to keep the eye on the prize, which was Abel. Verse 3. And in process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering to Yahuah. When we looked at the word process. Israel, dates are very, very important. We talked about bones, we talked about self-same day, so we must make sure that we look at the scriptures with a fine-tooth comb. Again, dates are extremely important in scriptures. Also, seasons are very important, and they should not be overlooked. So let's look at the word process. It's the Strong's number 7093. 7093, and we have the Kuf, and we have the Sadeh, the Sadeh final. And if you have the Hebrew words quats, spelled Q-A-T-A-S or K-A-T-E-S. And it means end, or the end of something. That's going to be very important. It means end, or the end of something. At the end of, as in time or space. Time or space. We have the word quatsa, Q-A-T-A-S, as contracted or coming from the word quats, and that's the Strong's number 7112, and we have quasats, and it means to cut off or to chop off. Again, it means to cut off or to chop off. Let's continue on. So we looked at the word process, and let's look at the word time. We're still in Genesis, the 4th chapter, verse 3. We have the word yom, as in day. And that word means time or year. So, we have, in a process of time, and the word process means at the end of something, something is going to be cut off, and then it came to pass that Cain brought forth the fruit of the ground and offerings into Yahuah. My argument here is that that verse is referring to one of the Moedims. Which Moedim, I'm not going to get into too much particulars with it, but it wouldn't surprise me that this is actually talking about the very first festival, which is Pesach, which you're not going to find Pesach here. You're not going to find it. What we went over before, we went to Genesis 15th chapter, when we talked about last week, and the week before that, and the week before that, and the week before that. We had talked about Abram at the time, when he did the sacrifice, the days, the 14th and the 15th being the beginning of the year. We talked about that. Verse 4. And Abel, he also brought the first thing of his flock and of the fat thereof, and Yahuah had respected to Abel and to his offerings. Now, the word, it came to pass. It came to pass. Let's go back to verse 3. It came to pass. That's the Strong's of in 1961. And they got the Hebrew word hayah, and it means to be, to become, come to pass, to exist. Now, in verses 3 and 4, can anybody share with me some of the problems or issues that's going on there with Cain and Abel already? I read it again. In process of time, this is the beginning of a year. We talked about one of the Moedims. In the process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground and offering it to Yahuah, and Abel, he also brought of the first thing of his flock and of the fat thereof, and Yahuah had respected to Abel and to his offering. Anybody see any problems or anything that's going on funny there? We have Torah.
So Cain doesn't show that he brought his first fruits, but it shows here that Abel gave his firstlings of his flock. So that's what I got.
You on point. You are on point. Hallelujah. That is absolutely 100% correct. 100% correct. Is there anything else? One more thing that should be brought out.
That Yahuah respected his.
Yeah. Firstlings, like Korah had brought out, is very important. Right, because we're talking about the core first fruits. That's very important. The first fruits represents your best. The Father always wants your best. So there are strong indications that Abel or Habal brought also fruit of the ground. Abel brought firstlings of his flock, the Bekor, and the word firstlings are not mentioned in Cain's offering. Watch how someone reading this and see how you're able to digest this, if you can. It said, in the process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering to Yahuah, and Abel he also. So, because see, we have a comma, but there are no commas, there are no parentheses, there are no question marks. None of those things are in Hebrew. So by putting in commas and in parentheses, it can change the sentence altogether. So we have, and Abel he also. If we were to read it like that, Abel he also what?
He also came.
Right. He also brought of the firstlings of the fruits of the season that year. You see where we're going with it? Verse 2 again. In the process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground, and Abel he also.
Right.
He did the same thing because there's something that the father is not accepting with with Cain's offering. So we have here now is that Cain didn't bring his very best. It wasn't his firstling, because we don't see anything in Scripture which talks about Cain bringing the best or the firstlings. Yeah, I mean, it's not the best. So we usually read it this way. And Abel he also brought of the firstling of his flock and the fat thereof. And Yahuah had respect to Abel and to his offering. What we also see here now is that we have Adam, who is the first priest. He taught his sons about the festivals. So they were already now in the transgression part of their life. They needed now to reconnect back to the Father. So we do see now where the Moedims are being set up. They knew how to set up these sacrifices. And I just found it real interesting here now is that the word firstlings is never mentioned with Cain's offering. And I find it interesting that it made mention, if we were to take out the comma, and Abel he also, meaning that he brought of the fruit of the ground, and he also now brought of the flock, and he understood the importance of the fat. Now, verse 5. But unto Cain and his offering, so again, it's not making any mentions that this was the best or the firsting of Cain's offering. But unto Cain and to his offering, he had no respect, and we have to ask ourselves, why didn't he have respect? And I've noticed something also important with this too now is that with bringing the firstlings or the best of the fruits and the, let's say the lamb or his livestock, it's talking about two very important things, because we know now that the fruit, there is a fruit harvest the beginning of the year when everything starts to bud. That has to be the first things that is supposed to be offered to the Father, and then we have the lamb. The Mashiyach was first fruits, and the Mashiyach was also the lamb. Again, I'm trying to share with us all of these prophetic shadow pictures of the Mashiyach. The Mashiyach was a first fruit sacrifice, and he was also a lamb, no blemishes. But we see something happening now later on down the line, and then we're going to finish up with two more verses. In Mishpachah, we will be done, and we'll finish up next week. But unto Cain and to his offerings, he had not respect, and Cain was very wroth, and his conscience